Welcome to Perspectives on Neurodiversity, a podcast dedicated to challenging myths and assumptions about neurodiverse life. I am your host, Christopher Scott Wyatt, speaking as the autistic me. A question I frequently receive, even when I speak to educators, is how someone who is neurodiverse ended up in education. Today's guest, Jason Dietrich, is a neurodiverse STEM educator who works at the Virginia Spaceflight Academy. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Christopher, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a huge and exciting honor for me to be here, and I'm very excited to share my story in terms of how I got to Virginia Spaceflight Academy, which is associated with NASA, and all the cool STEM activities that we're focusing on.
Let's start with your background. You are neurodiverse. When were you diagnosed, and with what were you diagnosed?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Christopher. So when I was 5 years old, I was diagnosed with hyperlexia, which is a form of autism. And what was curious amongst my parents was when I was reading books early on throughout my childhood, I was able to read at such a high level. So when I was in kindergarten, I was reading words that were equivalent to a fifth grade level. And my parents were just absolutely blown away by the skill that I had in terms of reading. Yet, however, what happened was even though I could read at such a high level, I actually could not comprehend what I was reading. So if someone or a teacher, asked me and said, hey, Jason, what does this particular word mean? I would be like, I don't know. So hyperlexia is a form of autism which involves someone's ability to read at a high level but struggles with reading comprehension. So basically from there, what I had to do was I knew I had to work, twice as hard to overcome my struggle with reading comprehension. And that's what allowed me to get to my journey at NASA, the Virginia Spaceflight Academy.
My youngest has dyslexia and phonemic awareness challenges. We work on graphemes, phonemes, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But that is very different than being able to read and not comprehend what you have read.
Mm-hmm.
When was a problem, a challenge detected? You said you were diagnosed at 5?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. And, it was interesting throughout my experiences. There was a doctor or someone that my father knows who is big in hyperlexia and has done many studies over the course of several years in relation to hyperlexia and what it entails. And what happened was not only was I able to read at such a high level, but sometimes I struggled in terms of basic social skills connections. I didn't make a whole lot of friends early on throughout my educational journey, and I often spent time alone by myself. So what happened was my parents brought a specialist over just to, see and make a diagnosis in terms of this phenomenon. And this specialist recognized that I had hyperlexia. I was showing the characteristics of it. And, I definitely wanted to express, Christopher, that, with hyperlexia, at first I saw it as a negative, but then it turns out, based on all of my skill sets and abilities and what I currently do at NASA, I don't consider it to be a negative at all. I consider it to be a positive. It has given me so many creative gifts and talents and passions that I never even knew I possessed. So as a result of that, with this diagnosis at 5 years old, what I had to do was I had to practice many times, trying to better comprehend, what I was reading. And I was very fortunate to get tutored during the summer, which helped out a lot.
Were there supports in the public school setting or in the school setting that you attended, K-12?
In elementary school, I actually had teachers that were not very supportive of my skill sets and abilities. So as a result, I often struggled mentally, physically, and emotionally. My teachers early on never really showed the time nor the effort that I needed in order for me to thrive in the classroom. There were a couple of instances where several of my teachers did not want to come to my IEP meeting. And for those of you viewers that are listening and watching, And if you don't know what an IEP is, an IEP stands for an individualized education plan. So because of my struggle with reading comprehension, I had an IEP. So definitely as a teacher, I was able to relate to any student who had an IEP like myself, but they did not have any interest in terms of wanting to build a relationship with me early on or connect with me. And I even had a teacher, Christopher, write an entirely wrong evaluation about my skill sets and my abilities. And when I transitioned on to middle school, my middle school teachers didn't even recognize who I was. They were like, who is this kid? This isn't Jason at all in terms of his skill sets or abilities. So I just didn't feel comfortable early on in elementary school. But the difference, Christopher, was made in middle school, where my teachers saw that I struggled and they actually sat down with me, they worked with me, and they helped me to see that hyperlexia was a tiny thing. It was not a massive negative that I was portrayed in having early on in my educational career. And it was thanks to my middle school teachers that they helped me first to discover all the hidden talents and passions that I had that comes with hyperlexia. So it was my middle school teachers that allowed me to see hyperlexia as a positive compared to a negative.
When you say it's a positive, could you explain how comprehension challenges could be perceived as a positive?
Yeah, absolutely. So in relation to comprehension struggles, I have learned that I benefited from hands-on activities. And I remember early on in middle school, I was introduced to the concepts of STEM education. I remember being introduced to concepts like astronomy, physics, environmental science, and even geology as well. And when I was introduced to the concepts of STEM education from those teachers, I was hooked, Christopher, because what happened was we did a lot of hands-on labs and activities, and that actually allowed me to become a scientist and actually feel like a scientist. So even though I struggled through concepts in reading comprehension, I was able to use my hands and, I was able to use my memory. I know from my struggles with hyperlexia, I have what's known as an eidetic memory. That is very rare for individuals to have, where I am able to remember things like that, which really helped with studying. So, and I know that some people throughout the world have a photographic memory, which again allows them to learn visually. So even though I wasn't able to comprehend what I was reading, Christopher, early on through reading a chapter book, through a hands-on activity, I was able to visualize important scientific concepts, and I was able to dive deeper in terms of how to figure out a solution to a problem. And that's what led me to pursue a career at NASA, because we focused on hands-on activities and hands-on initiatives, and that's what we did at Virginia Space Flight Academy this past summer, where we focused on concepts relating to drones, rocketry, coding, and robotics. And the big thing is, Christopher, as well, with, Virginia Space Flight Academy is we don't focus on grades. We focus on the learning, because we want the students to be able to learn, grow, and overcome challenges and be able to collaborate together. It was in relation to the concepts of STEM education that STEM provided multiple highways of opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to educate and bring awareness on through my work at NASA.
Did the supports that you received in middle school continue into high school? Because what we find is that nationally, IEPs, somewhat opposite of your experiences, they tend to be adhered to and followed in the elementary levels. Then they taper off in middle school, and by high school, the teachers are not able to implement an IEP or a 504 plan. And whether a student has an IEP or a 504, we know the law. It's a topic frequently addressed on the blog and the podcast. Unfortunately, we know that the supports are lacking, but especially at the secondary level, where high schools have a different focus. They don't have typically the paraprofessionals. They don't always have the assessment experts, the school psychologists. So what happened between that transition from middle school to high school for you?
I do have to say that when I transitioned from middle school to high school, it was even better. And, when I transitioned on to middle school, I was walking on cloud 9, And same thing in high school compared to elementary school. Because Christopher, what happened was again, through middle school, they helped to ignite the spark in my mind that allowed me to pursue all sorts of interesting topics related to STEM fields and STEM education, because it provides, again, multiple different highways of opportunity. But in high school, I got accustomed to so many experiences and so many opportunities because my teachers cared. In elementary school, my teachers early on didn't show a whole lot of support or enthusiasm. They just didn't care. But in middle school and high school, again, my teachers showcased that they cared by sitting down and working with me. And it was my high school teachers that expanded upon my interests and my skill sets further. In high school, they even got me to audition for parts in the musical, because in middle school, I discovered that I was very talented in singing and playing the clarinet as well. So I'm very musically inclined as well. And I actually in high school got the lead role in a high school production of the musical production, Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So that was my senior year of high school. So I was just, I was shooting for the stars, if you will, in high school, because I was able to expand upon all of my findings in middle school and, transition it on to high school. And Christopher, my middle school teachers and high school teachers value these 4 C's, which I value and I feel are essential to promote STEM engagement. You have to be caring, you have to be compassionate, you have to be a great communicator, and you also have to be creative. So all of my teachers in middle school and high school were all 4 of those C's. They did all of them. And that's what made the difference for me in relation to going on then to college. And, when I have told people that my elementary school experience was not the best and middle school was great, a lot of times, Christopher, it's the complete opposite, like you said. So I was just in a district where, in relation to my teachers, where they care the most, it was middle school and high school. And that made all the difference for me.
We find that a lot of middle schools and high schools lack the resources for STEM education. They don't have the budgets for basics. By basics, I mean lab equipment like microscopes. They certainly don't always have robotics. They lack these resources depending on the state, obviously, in that district's budget. I know that even the schools that my daughters attend, they're frequently asking, can you donate so we can buy? Can you help us get these things? Whether it was the robotics, looking for kits because they didn't have new kits with the current components to compete. They're looking for basic microscopes. They are looking for basic slide prep kits. In those environments, it becomes very difficult to teach STEM because you have to use practical things from a kitchen, things from a store that you can go buy on your own. And unfortunately, that's the position STEM teachers find themselves in is, can I go to Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby, maybe the grocery store and Target, buy some baking soda, buy some basics, vinegar, whatever they want to, need for that week. And I know teachers who have even gone onto Amazon and bought microscopes and then brought them into their classrooms. STEM we talk about it, but we don't always support it. And I find that many students who are neurodiverse find the hands-on nature of STEM or auto or wood shop or something. They find those hands-on classes valuable. And yet at the same time, those hands-on classes don't have resources. Did your school have those resources?
Yeah, Christopher, in relation to, what you were saying, about, schools lacking some of the resources, I definitely understand that. And I've witnessed it in other school districts. Like I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm probably 45 minutes northwest of Philadelphia. So the Philadelphia City School District, those schools and like Upper Darby School District, they don't have the resources. They don't have the funding. But I was very fortunate to be in a school district that not only was big, but they did have a big budget. So as a result, they were able to implement a lot of technology into the classrooms. And, it's very interesting nowadays, Christopher, I'm just amazed. When I went on to middle school, which, seemed like ages ago when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, but what was going on was I didn't have a Chromebook. But now all of the students in a lot of the school districts now have Chromebooks that are provided to them. But I was very fortunate, Christopher, in my school district, they did have the resources, they did have the infrastructure to be able to implement STEM education initiatives and activities as compared to like other school districts where there's a lot of poverty, homelessness, because homelessness, it's pretty common, unfortunately, in Philadelphia and Baltimore and like Chicago, in the big inner cities, unfortunately. And as a result of that, those people don't have the money or the finances to be able to support the schools. A lot of them are on welfare as well. And, the schools can't support the students. But in relation to the school district that I went to, I was very fortunate and privileged to have those resources. And that's, again, what helped to launch me off towards a career at NASA.
If I might ask, do you use audiobooks or other materials to compensate for the hyperlexia?
Sometimes I've used audiovisual books from time to time. I found that to be particularly helpful. But also, Christopher, what I like to do is in relation to books now, whenever I have a textbook, since I'm in graduate school, I also read a lot of chapters in relation to some of my assignments. But what I was taught in relation to, the reading comprehension tutoring that I had starting in elementary school, I like to highlight important concepts. And, even though I'm very slow in terms of like reading, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And again, I like to emphasize that in relation to me having hyperlexia, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having that at all or any other disability. God created each and every single one of us to be special in his eyes and in his mind. So in relation to books that I typically read, some audiovisual books I like to read, but then, also too, I like to read action adventure books, but then also books that have pictures, because again, Christopher, I can visualize some important concepts in relation to what's going on in the book, or if it's about STEM education.
And how was the university experience? You obviously went on to a university, so you could become an educator. Did your undergraduate institution provide supports? Did you need supports? How did you find classroom success in the undergraduate setting?
In my undergraduate experience, what happened was like I said, I went to Moravian University up in Bethlehem, and I graduated from there in 2019. I, again, was on a special plan in relation to my struggle with, reading comprehension. And I also was put on an academic support plan that would also support me in terms of test taking as well. And so what happened was because in relation to my ability just to like read a little bit slower and also, comprehend at a bit of a slower rate, I got a time and a half in order to finish up a quiz or a test. So, for example, if a professor gave out a test and it took 20 minutes, I was given 30 minutes. So I was given the 20 minutes and then plus the half of that, which is 10, and that enabled me to have 30 minutes. So that is definitely something that I had, and that was proven to be very helpful. And all of my professors were very, very supportive of my skill sets and abilities, especially my education professors. There were a couple of professors that didn't show a whole lot of support in terms of me having hyperlexia through my undergrad. My advisors that I had in terms of scheduling and in terms of, working with me in terms of developing a schedule, they unfortunately did not provide a whole lot of support and guidance. I had to do a lot of scheduling on my own at my undergrad because my advisors just weren't very enthusiastic and they didn't want to do anything. And they just didn't want to support me. But I was very fortunate to have had some education professors that, again, recognized my struggles with hyperlexia. And I even told my story through some of our discussion posts, and they were just fascinated. They wanted to learn more. And, Christopher, you can't escape the fact that regardless of what, place you go to, you're always going to run into bad teachers, whether it's in elementary, middle school, high school, or even college, or, even graduate school as well. You can't escape that. But I have learned from my good teachers and my not so good teachers. But throughout my undergraduate school experience, what really ignited the spark even further in terms of STEM education was based on the support that I got there from my education professors was through the Millennium Fellowship experience. So I actually worked with the United Nations on helping to promote the Global Sustainability Development Goals. And I went around, traveled around to local elementary, middle schools, and high schools in relation to spreading awareness on the Sustainability Development Goals. And I also spoke at the United Nations headquarters in New York City, which was an unbelievable experience where I got to speak to a global, worldwide audience about what we need to do to successfully implement these goals. And I shared my story and experiences even further. So it was thanks to my education professors in relation to their support and their encouragement that they helped me to pursue this opportunity with the United Nations. And that's what really sparked my interest in STEM. And that helped me to do global education outreach. And that's what I'm doing with my dream job at NASA.
What is your undergraduate degree?
My undergraduate degree, it's a Bachelor of Science in General Science, and I was certified to teach middle school. So my middle level education certification is in grades 4 through 8, and I am certified to teach students in science and math. Those are my specialty certifications, and I am also eligible to teach all the other subjects like ELA and social studies in grades 4 through 6.
And you have continued with your education into graduate school.
That is correct, yes. I am currently pursuing a master's degree in curriculum and instruction with a STEM focus, and it's NASA affiliated. And the reason why it's NASA affiliated is because my program goes through the Endeavor certificate, which is incredibly awesome because I get to interact with professors who are, NASA trained and have had the experience in implementing cool and innovative experiences for students. And that's what I'm doing at NASA. I am implementing curriculum standards where I'm helping to revolutionize the curriculum and the state standards throughout the United States and the world. And I'm very fortunate to be here. It wasn't easy in terms of getting there, but I've definitely noticed, Christopher, that, since even though I've had, more than 4 years of STEM teaching experience in a public school classroom, at NASA, I can use my creativity and my imagination even more. And that's especially what I'm doing at the Virginia Space Flight Academy. In the classroom, I felt very restricted in terms of, what I needed to teach. And, I was told to just teach to the standard. And then, with some of the teachers that I worked with, they just said, the students, you just have to push them through. You have to push them through. And that philosophy I didn't agree with. And especially with the impacts that we have seen from the COVID-19 pandemic, I know it's been very, very stressful for everybody. All of the students, as a result of all the virtual learning that we did, they are now 2 years behind grade level, and they need our help. And the time is now. And, it's from the work that I'm currently doing at NASA and the Virginia Space Flight Academy, where we're helping to provide students with an educational STEM experience where they get to meet with NASA scientists and engineers and mathematicians and help to bring back the sense of collaboration and communication. Because during COVID, with all the isolation, the communication was lost with everybody. And, mental health has struggled numerous times. And as a result, people have struggled, with mental health. It's a huge issue nowadays. But it's thanks to those experiences where we're, again, helping to ignite the spark and help to bring back a sense of joy and pride and enthusiasm where we didn't have that, during COVID. There's a sense of hope that we are bringing.
I teach at a public university, a research university, and I am finding a few things. The first off is we have continued to offer mini core classes online, and the online environment is asynchronous. I could see this as an adaptation, and I know there are many courses I would have taken that way and done fine. But as you have said, what we aren't helping those students with, who are predominantly STEM students, they are not learning to collaborate. They are not doing hands-on, they're doing virtual. I respect that I'm at a highly ranked university that's nationally respected, but The virtual just does not feel like it is preparing them as well as let's build a model, let's do a simulation. And by simulation, I don't mean a computer simulation. I mean, let's take a wing and put the wing in the wind tunnel. Let's build a building and put it on the earthquake stand. But post-COVID, the university found that a lot of students wanted to continue online for the convenience, the flexibility. And quite honestly, the university doesn't need to provide the classroom. They don't need to provide the devices. They can control their costs. So I'm finding myself ambivalent. I can see the benefits of online because the students became very naturalized to the online setting during the COVID pandemic. But I'm not sure for engineering students, for the science students we have, that is the best way to teach the subjects that to me are best experienced.
Yeah, I was going to say, Christopher, in relation to that, I definitely agree with you in relation to that. Sometimes, with virtual learning or, teaching in, the classroom, like you said, there's some pros and some cons. For students that are like STEM enthusiastic, just like myself, or for those that are, engineers, they need to have the hands-on learning and the opportunities and the experience. There are some businesses, Christopher, that I know of today, like, for example, at my brother's business. He works at a private government contracting agency. Now, what he does is classified, so I don't really know what he does. But businesses are actually still struggling to get people to come into work because they want to work from home. They don't want to come in. And, in relation to that, I don't agree with that, especially if it's a company that's, big into pharmaceuticals or, STEM engagement and outreach. There's only so much that you can do on a computer screen. Now, there's definitely a lot of software applications that, you can definitely implement on your computer. It's very cool in terms of how technology has advanced over the years and what was exposed since the COVID-19 pandemic. But still, in relation to, the STEM fields, everybody's got to get back into work, and everybody's got to, make sure that they are, collaborating again, and, they are also working together. Because I got to tell you, Christopher, from my space adventure camp that I participated in, it would have been really difficult to do that experience virtually, because in terms of teaching robotics, drones, coding, and rocketry, all the students, they were designing their own robot, designing their own rocket, they were launching their own rocket, and also flying their own drones. That would be exceedingly difficult to do virtually. So depending on the profession, virtual learning can work, but in other places it can't. So, in those places that can't, what they need to do is, they need to, recognize that, like in the STEM fields, and they need to start bringing people back in. And that's what, Virginia Spaceflight Academy is doing. And I have witnessed, Christopher, that with that experience, all of the students, they flourished, and, they couldn't get enough of all the experiences. The campers even got to see a rocket launch live in person, and so did I. And that was incredible. It's one thing to see it virtually, but to get to see it, in person where you're 2 miles from the launch pad, that's incredible. And, the students really got to benefit from that experience this past summer. So it's providing those real life application concepts, Christopher, that really helps to make the difference in STEM. And that's what we need to be doing. In order to make sure that, everybody's getting enthusiastic and not, checked out, if you will, from STEM.
Another concern I have at the university setting is the declining supports I see for my students who are neurodiverse and otherwise facing challenges because of differences. The campus I'm at has 75,000 students. There are similar campuses, obviously. I'm thinking University of Central Florida, University of Minnesota, Michigan, Urbana-Champaign. These are campuses, public institutions, land-grant institutions that have 40,000 or more students. And unfortunately, when you have such a large student body, you may have 5, 6 specialists in disability resources, disability services. Because there is no IEP 504 plan, you are adhering to the Americans with Disabilities Act and Higher Education Act, but there's only so much is directly provided to the student Professors often find themselves on their own trying to adapt a course. For those students, as I said, who are neurodiverse, many of them are interested in the STEM fields. That's why they're at a campus such as the one that I teach at, which is a land, sea, a space grant institution. We are affiliated with NASA. It's difficult for those students because they really love STEM, and we aren't always providing the support. And as I said, one of the accommodations, for lack of a better word, is, we'll offer the courses online. Individuals with neurodiversity often suffer from social challenges. Online collaboration is already more difficult for everybody. So it's difficult to mentor neurodiverse students to master collaboration in STEM without them being there together.
Right.
So how are you approaching this at Virginia Spaceflight Academy, and how are you teaching and nurturing those very collaborative skills that unfortunately many of our larger research universities just aren't supporting right now?
One of the big things that we actually did at Virginia Spaceflight Academy this past summer, and I actually sponsored this initiative, is that Virginia Spaceflight Academy is sensory inclusive certified now. So we are still working through the process, and we're finalizing it, over these next couple of months. But in terms of sensory inclusion, what that particularly means or entails is it involves someone, and it doesn't matter, who it is, but it involves someone who has a sensory need, and it can be a disability. It could be someone who is sensitive to noise. I have found that, people or individuals who have like hyperlexia or autism, they have sensitivity to noise or loud noises. So, and I was actually in a autistic classroom, early on in my educational career because, I needed some extra support and some extra help. And there were some other classmates of mine that were sensitive to loud noises. In relation to Virginia Spaceflight Academy, our goal was to reach a pretty wide demographic. So we're not only supporting individuals who have the desire or interest to pursue STEM careers and STEM innovation, but we're opening it up to any individual with a sensory need. The fact that we are sensory inclusive certified, Christopher, what we were able to do was through one of the programs, it's called Culture City. So I would definitely, encourage you and your viewers to definitely check out this program because it's very beneficial and it's easy to get certified in it. But what happens is that in relation to the program, we actually got kits where there were headphones that were provided. There were a couple of campers that were a little bit stressed, a little bit overwhelmed this past summer, who might have been homesick or, sensitive to noise, and they just needed a little bit of a break and they just needed a quiet area. So as a result, we provided them with headphones. And that really helped them to settle down, and we continued to motivate and inspire them. And it also enabled them to get back into the camp session. So that is definitely something that we are doing because, for those who have sensory needs, it's very difficult for them to attend, let's say, a baseball game or a football game, a hockey game, because it's very, very loud for them. And whenever they hear loud noises in general, it gets them overwhelmed. And sometimes it gets them to have a panic attack. By providing the sensory inclusive certification, that opens it up to an even more wider demographic, and it allows for other individuals who have a sensory need or a disability to see that, hey, Virginia Spaceflight Academy supports you. So we open it up to anybody who is interested and fascinated with STEM. It's through those certification processes that has really enabled, students to come in to our camp. And we also, Christopher, support as well, low income students through partnerships as well. Through some of our partnerships, Christopher, our other NASA STEM engagement specialist works with a group where the students are 3 to 4 grades behind grade level. So, and that is pretty significant and that is pretty severe. So, because again, they don't have the support, they don't have the resources, and they don't have the infrastructure needed to get, those students caught up. Through these partnerships, we have actually brought in an interest in terms of STEM, and we've had to modify, our instruction. Because again, Christopher, all students learn in different ways and at different rates. So it's very important to meet the learner where they are, so that way we can get them to where they need to go. But since we've modified our instruction through these partnerships, these individuals or these students have really seen that, wow, this is something that they could do. And this is something that inspired them. So there were many students that said that they were very inspired and they wanted to pursue these STEM career fields and interests. And that's why, Christopher, we not only offer a space adventure camp during the summer, but we also offer a year-round online STEM academy that supports students in a wide range of STEM fields and interests, specifically in grades 2 through 8. And we're looking to expand upon that even further to support high school. So it's through these opportunities that has really made us help to broaden our demographic outreach, and it's really made an impact and difference.
Jason, this is the Virginia Spaceflight Academy. Does that mean that you're limited to students in the Virginia area, or are you serving a national student population?
So no, we are not limited in terms of just being in Virginia. We worked with students over the last 25 years. This is our 25th year anniversary, so it's a big milestone year. But we have worked with students throughout 25 different states in the United States. So a lot of our students have come from the East Coast, like Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, etc., all the way up to Maine. We've also had students, come from Missouri, even all the way out to California as well. So we have a wide demographic outreach that supports, students all throughout the United States. It's not strictly based in one area. And that's why we're definitely exposing many students in terms of STEM careers. We have inspired and worked with over 6,000 students throughout the United States. And, as a result of our outreach initiatives with our Space Adventure Camp and our STEM Academy, that has really helped to impact that many students on a broad scale.
And the online experiences, those are accessible anywhere at any time, or do you have to also then have a portion of it at the Virginia Spaceflight Academy?
If anybody wants to check out VASFA, or Virginia Spaceflight Academy, VASFA is our acronym for short, what you all can do is you can go to www.vasfa.org, and you'll be able to see our website, where you'll be able to see our Space Adventure Camp and also our year-round online STEM Academy through our program links. And what you can definitely do is from that website, if you click on the STEM Academy, you'll be able to see all the program offerings that we are currently offering. And in relation to the STEM Academy, Christopher, our sessions primarily run at least, 5 times over the course of a month, sometimes even 6 times, but the learning is still not done after that. So after 5 or 6 days, we don't just stop and say, that's it, you're on your own. No, we still offer the support. I have co-designed with another NASA STEM engagement specialist that I currently work with on a video game on module, where the students get to design their own video games based on Bloxels, which is a very popular educational tool that educators use throughout the United States. And our basic motto for our module is, don't just play games, make them. So the students are using, the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy in terms of analyzing, creating, and that's what really helps to expose students to see that this is something that you could do, and this is something that, you could even do for a living as well. Even though the sessions are over, we still support them. We still have gotten emails from students in relation to our game design, and we have also kept them connected in our Bloxels community, and we are in fact teaching our module again this fall. So we're very, very excited about that. And as alumni, whether you're part of the Space Adventure Camp or our STEM Academy, you will be included to many opportunities in terms of how to reconnect with alumni and STEM explorers as well.
Does Virginia Spaceflight Academy offer resources and supports for educators who are trying to do more in their classroom than they might anticipate doing on their own, where they could come to vasfa.org and find something useful Are there resources at the website for educators?
In terms of our website and our curriculum that we have actually had campers or, camp staff members who have worked there. They have actually taken the curriculum to their school districts. The previous camp director that was in charge of the camp, since I was the operations manager this past year, he actually brought on a STEM class, and he's teaching 6th and 7th grade STEM, where he's teaching, concepts relating to robotics and coding, and he's having a blast. So in relation to that, these camp staff members have started to bring in classroom material into their own classrooms. Now, even though we're not selling any of our content or our materials right now, what we plan to do is with that curriculum, we definitely want to, in the next, year or so, we definitely wanted to create a store where teachers can go to virginiaspaceflightacademy.org and they'll be able to see all of the cool lesson plans that we offer and our experiences that we offer as well. We're even thinking of, in the next couple of years, of having a Virginia Spaceflight Academy be a school year-round in the next couple of years. So that is definitely something that we are planning on doing as well. But in terms of what the educators or, parents or, students can do to check out our Virginia Spaceflight Academy website, they'll be able to see our Space Adventure Camp, our STEM Academy, and they'll be able to see who our sponsors and partners are. So we're looking for partners that are willing to donate to us and, work with us throughout the community. So that's another way that they'll be able to see and get some help from us as well. But then in terms of our curriculum, we'll definitely, make sure over the next, year or two to have like a store where, teachers can see some of our content even further. So we're definitely growing even further.
It has been a pleasure to talk with you. We're speaking with Jason Dietrich at the Virginia Spaceflight Academy. We will have all of the links in the show notes for anyone listening on one of the podcast platforms. Jason, you've mentioned several times that you really are excited. It's obvious your enthusiasm for being at NASA, being associated with NASA. And you said that became sort of a goal as early as middle school. How inviting has this been for a neurodiverse individual? You clearly seem enthusiastic. You clearly seem to have found a place. So can you explain what that's like as a neurodiverse individual and how that sense of belonging has worked out for you?
Yeah, absolutely, Christopher. Well, I've got to say, Christopher, in relation to my current experience, at NASA, It has been a dream come true, I do have to say. If I would have in elementary school thought that I would be working at NASA, there's just absolutely no way because of the lack of support and resources that I had early on, from my teachers. But, Christopher, throughout my experiences and opportunities at NASA, what I'm trying to inspire and motivate the next generation of youth learners is there's an opportunity for everybody at NASA. And it doesn't matter what skill set or abilities that you have, or it doesn't matter if you're neurodiverse. What matters is that if you are caring, if you are compassionate, if you are a great communicator, and you're also creative, like myself, you like to dream big, then NASA's the place for you. We have a place for you. In relation to, my experience, with NASA, I have collaborated with individuals who are dream big thinkers just like myself. And it has been it's been a huge honor and a huge privilege to be able to interact with other like-minded STEM NASA enthusiasts who are trying to make a global change and impact on, the state standards in the United States and even around the world. So just because you may have a neurodiverse skill set, that doesn't mean whatsoever that you are limited. I had to tell myself, Christopher, many times that, don't give up. Just because, I had teachers who weren't very supportive early on, I still had to get back up and I had to work. So it takes time and you have to work to be able to get to being at NASA. So if you're willing to put in the effort and if you're willing to be able to, make some wonderful connections, then you can definitely work at NASA. And now I'm dreaming even bigger, Christopher, where I dream of being an astronaut. I'd love to go into space, to the moon, and, also to Mars as well. So, the sky's the limit. The work that I have done has been extraordinary. And my experiences that I've had, in the public school teaching, even though I changed careers, it served me well. And I really want to inspire the next generation of youth, especially those that are neurodiverse, that there's incredible opportunities within your eyesight that it's important for you to take advantage of. And if you can dream it, then you can do it. So, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with dreaming big, because Albert Einstein once said that your imagination is everything, and it's the preview to life's coming attractions. If you think about that, that's a very true statement, because your whole life experiences is in your imagination. So if you just trust the process, and if you especially trust God as well, because he puts ideas inside your head, which is his plan for your life. And if you trust him and his guidance, you'll really get far.
I want to thank Jason Dietrich from the Virginia Spaceflight Academy for being on Perspectives on Neurodiversity. It is an interesting perspective and one we need, an educator who's neurodiverse, and hopefully creating an inviting and supportive environment for a lot of students and spreading the word nationally and internationally. So thank you, Jason Dietrich, for being on the podcast.
Christopher, thank you so much again for having me. It was a huge honor, and I was very excited to share my story and experiences. I'm open to collaboration and open to big ideas.
And you can find Virginia Spaceflight Academy at VASFA, so VA, Virginia, SFA, spaceflightacademy.org. There are also links on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. I appreciate Jason's time. We're going to put all of that in the show notes for our listeners and viewers. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Perspectives on Neurodiversity. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, and please leave a review if you found the discussion useful. I am Christopher Scott Wyatt. Jason Dietrich, thank you for joining us.
Thank you again, Christopher. It was a huge honor.